order. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the April 9th, 2024 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting for the Town of Rocky Mountain House, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. First order of business is the adoption of agenda. To adopt the agenda, I have an item to add, and it's the letter. Does anybody have any other additions or deletions for today's agenda? Seeing no other questions or comments, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda for today. Deputy Mayor Caprero?
Thank you. I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda for today, April 9th, as amended.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And seeing none, and that's carried. So today we do not have any delegations, and I'm looking for the 4.1 adoption of previous minutes. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the previous minutes from March 12th, 2024? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion. Councillor Chappelle?
I'll also move the minutes as presented.
Thank you very much. With no further questions or comments about that motion, I'll call that to a vote. Seeing none, all in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And that's carried. So today we have no delegation business. We have no old business on the agenda, so we're going into new business with an RFD for airport fees. And I believe, Betty, are you speaking toward that?
I'll speak to just the opening, and then you might as well go sit over there.
Yeah, sorry, I was looking, they're usually over here. So I was looking that way.
Mr. Lindsay will answer any questions. So, council or administration was requested to provide some comparison on the rates for various airports. So you do have a document in your agenda, and I have also supplied, just in the same format, the rates and fees for the Town of Rocky Mountain House Airport. So Mr. Lindsay, our airport manager, has prepared this. There's 11 airports included in the comparison. And just looking through at the different types of rates, there's really lease rates, landing fees, and parking fees, and there doesn't seem to be anything that's really consistent between the different airports. So with that, I'll just see if Mr. Lindsay has anything to add to it, or if you have any questions for him.
Thank you very much. So this is brought to us today because administration has asked for it. Like, I'm just wondering we're just reviewing it. On the RFD, it doesn't say like what our job is today.
I think it was just requested for information. This council, because we partner the airport with the county, this would be just for information. If we wanted to look at any changes in fees, that would need to go to ICC for further discussion. So I think it was just an information item, and that's all that's, as far as I know, what was intended.
Thank you so much for clarifying. Mr. Lindsay, don't forget to push your red button. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me at all on this?
I think Councillor Phillips already has his light on.
Yes, I do have a question. So for just a small aircraft, like a Cessna or something like that, would that follow under the 2,000 kilogram category?
Yes.
It would,
Yes.
for sure. Okay. What airplane would fall over the 2,000 kilogram?
Something like a King Air, twin engine turboprop, small ones would be in that category. Anything above that.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any tenants now that have anything above what you're describing?
I believe one of our tenants has that Aero L29 jet, which is
Okay.
heavier than the minimum.
And that's one of the commercial bays?
It's a private.
Okay.
It's Rick Fiked on the far end there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's a-
So that would affect one of our current leaseholders
Yes.
only?
I think Tomco's Navajo was a little bit lighter. So
Yeah, so I was, that's the one I was thinking
I
of.
think it's under the
Yeah.
2,000 kilograms.
Okay. I see Counselor Hutchinson has a question.
Thank you.
Did you want to come back to something?
Go ahead.
It just may be a silly question, but how do you determine what weight an aircraft is when it comes in and out of the airport?
Okay, typically what we do is I record all the air movements by radio communications and track it as stats, as you've seen in my reports from time to time. There's a website that Transport Canada maintains that has all the aircraft idents in Canada, and it gives information on the type, the engine, the year, the weights, all that sort of information, and the ownership as well, and how it's registered. So I get the information off of that, which is quite often every airport that does any kind of fees bases on that Transport Canada database.
Thanks. So would it be a lot of work for you to be able to do that kind of a snapshot of, you know, in a month we had 20 landings and seven were under, 2005 were above, anything like that? I'm not thinking for now, but perhaps if this goes to ICC, it would be information that we may want?
It can be done. I've done it in a past life up in High Level, and it was a fair bit of work. There's software that will do it for us, but it requires a different way of collecting the data than just recording it and transcribing each morning for an hour. It'd be a process, but it can be done.
You're already recording the flight numbers, yeah? Like the plane numbers?
Everything that's spoken on the radio is recorded on my recorder, and I transcribe each morning onto movements. Movement being an arrival or departure.
So we're already collecting number of flights per day and where they're from and if they're touch and go or if they're water bombers.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that in your reports,
Yes.
on your airport reports, right? So it would just be a matter of transcribing the make and model and entering it in to get the over and above, like
Yes.
Councillor Hutchinson was asking. Because you already have the information. So we could actually even take the information that we have and go back and find it for the last year, or no?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Does that help? Yeah. Back to Councillor Phillips. Sorry, Councillor
Yes,
Phillips.
thank you. So just for clarification then, other than one of the leaseholders out there, it's gonna be the tanker base that's gonna be over
Correct.
2,000? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So this is a topic I know that we've discussed over the years and talked about, and I think it's time to probably bring it to an ICC meeting to have a discussion and, and look at what we do out there, because based on the other, the comparable airports here, it looks like about a little better than half do have some type of landing fees, and they range from all over the board, so. But I think it's something that warrants talking with the ICC about, and maybe it's something that we decide to do, maybe it's something we don't decide to do, but I think it's time that we have the discussion at the ICC level.
Well, I think we should have it here before we bring it to ICC, so we have a good solid idea of what we are looking at and what we would like to see before we go to ICC with it. So I have a couple more questions, I think, So is there a way we could put a fee on visitors rather than stakeholders? Because stakeholders are paying property taxes and things like that. Is that something that other airports have, like, how does that work? When they're doing touch and goes, it still has an impact for the wear and tear on our runways, and we still have to clear it, and we record all that information, but they're neither stakeholders nor residents necessarily of our community. Is that something that other airports do?
Quite often, they will exempt local aircraft. They'll quite often exempt training flights or medevac flights or that sort of thing. There's all kinds of different ways of doing it. So that's all tracked on my database.
And right now, we do not have any landing fees in our community, correct?
Correct.
And all of our fees come from fuel. So if you buy fuel in Rocky, say from Kyle, the fuel, fella, or if you bring your own fuel onto site in barrels, then you get a fee on that, right?
5 cents per liter, yes.
Yeah. And there is a negotiation or a lease already made up with the tanker base. Do you know when the end of that document is?
March 2026, March 31st. And it's with Alberta Forestry.
And in that lease, it says that they don't pay any fees,
Well,
correct?
it's quite substantial what they pay, and I think it's kind of all encompassing, so it's their hangar as well as it covers any landing and takeoff fees. It's in excess of $45,000, so it's a lot.
And if I may, they also do pay the fuel fee on top of that every year.
So it wasn't put on the piece of paper we were given just this morning to compare. I see some of the other things have, like, say which ones are tanker bases and which aren't. But we don't have the information for what their contract is, correct?
No, because they just pay an annual lump sum, so it's not broken down into the different rates.
Like every tanker base pays a different, they've negotiated a contract for each of these municipalities, but we don't know what it is.
I don't know if they've got, like, have they got firefighting tanker bases at these airports?
The ones that say tanker base do have the tanker bases.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my
Okay,
assumption, so then I'm
yeah,
just wondering,
They may have, I don't know.
yeah.
Typically, they are a negotiated contract with the airport owner, with forestry. They're pretty standard. They do pay for their land area on a price per square meter, as an all-inclusive essentially. Then they pay other fees on top, such as the fuel fees and whatnot.
So am I correct in that they were looking for more space currently at our fee because they used to bunk up double? And now that they're looking for more space, have we like had any discussions about that?
I have spoken with them, and they do have enough space, just not enough cleared space. There's still trees. They changed the rules on the single bunking versus double bunking, I think 2 years ago.
Uh-huh,
And they're gonna bring a camp in, and they didn't have any place to put it,
right.
so.
Is that some way that we could like start some further development of the airport? I know it's a little bit off topic, but if we're gonna look at renegotiating fees, like an easy way is to development and add more tenants to that area. If they need more space and we can move them further down the runway, you know, and develop either side of them, cause wouldn't want tenants to go past them to hangars. You know, we want them, you know what I mean? They would go past tenants maybe, or however we do it. Is that something we could look at?
It's whatever council wishes to do, it's your airport.
But it is true that
Yes.
they are looking possibly for more space, because they used to, like I said, bunk double, and now they're bunking single. And so it would be an opportunity maybe if we had to expand their space to add more tenants to this.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Counselor Phillips?
Yes, just something to point out on this information that we have. Any airport that has a tanker base, all of them have some sort of landing fees. Just wanted to point that out to council. So I definitely, as I said before, I think this is something that we need to bring to ICC because we have our partners at the county that we collaborate with at the airport. So I think this is a discussion that we should have and see how that goes or where it goes.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't mind, like, after a contract signed, like during negotiations, it's not public, but after a contract signed, I'd like to compare our contract for our air base with flights and landings and stuff, you know, as a good discussion so that we have like a bigger picture, you know, especially because if the contract ends March 31st, 2026, so that would be next year. Yeah, be spring of next year, or like sometime next year, we'd start looking at that, to have it ready for March 31st, right? Or how does that contract normally, is it automatically go to a month by month, or does it have to be?
I would have to check the details. I didn't look at that when I looked at it this morning. So I'm not sure when it renews, if there's a lot of discussion, or I'd have to look.
Okay. Counselor Hutchinson?
I agree with Counselor Phillips about, the fee structure going back to ICC. But I also want to maybe touch base with council on when we did our economic development planning with the county and how we were talking about having regional goals and regional visions. And to me, that would be an appropriate place to bring forward what is our vision for the airport, what is our expectations, where do we want to go with it, and have that as both councils
Yeah.
putting forward ideas.
I think a lot of municipal airports are looking at those things right now specifically. That's why the whole group is getting together. Councillor Musker?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, to Mr. Lindsay. Thank you for providing this for Rocky's rates. It does help put these other airports in perspective. Just a comment, I'm surprised that we don't have landing fees at this point. That's new to me. But if you could pick one or two off this list that you've provided of other airports, which would be, in your estimation, the most comparable to Rocky's situation?
Can I
sorry if I
add,
put
can I
you on
add
the
that
spot.
in, because there's no frequencies on here either, right? Where does it say what the actual, how many landings there are?
Oh, it doesn't appear.
Yeah,
This is
that's
all-
what I mean by
this is
frequency.
per landing. If you have a 10 or 1,000, it's the same rate.
Right, but if we're comparing how many flights, it's good to know what the total number, because if you look at our numbers, there's 5,000 about landings a year, is that correct?
8 to 9,000, yeah.
8 to 9,000, and 5,000 are just touch and goes?
I don't know.
I had your numbers here just the other day. 5,045 stuck in my head, and I don't
Okay.
know if that was total flights for the year,
That was
or,
the December report would have had the year-end totals, right?
yeah, so, it would be nice to know what the total flights are, but, for sure, we can continue with that question, but it's, do you have any that would have similar structure to us? Without knowing how many flights, it's hard to tell, right?
Yeah. Rocky's kind of unique. It was a provincial airport, and it was a certified airport. And at some point in the recent past, it's gone from certified to registered. Now, the majority of our traffic here is typically general aviation and training flights. Most airports, I can speak for high level, as I used to work there once upon a time, with their rates and fees, they get almost zero general aviation flights. It just costs too much to go there. With the majority of our traffic being light aircraft and general aviation and training from various schools around the province, it would be a deterrent, to say the least. But I chose these other airports with tanker bases because you do maintain a heavier structure of runway with an actual certified rating for load capacity. I threw in Laklabish and Drumheller and some other ones just as comparisons. But as far as the mix of traffic we get is comparable to ourselves, really. I mean, there's other smaller airports that aren't certified, don't have the heavier asphalts, and don't get the bigger traffic that get the same general aviation. We're kind of a unique blend here in Rocky, I think, that gets a lot of, we get, the Ken Boric Air does their annual training with their DC-3s for the Antarctic flights, which most airports won't get. Right now, Forestry's flying their Electras and their Bird Dogs a lot in training for the fire season. And Ken Boric's back now at Twin Otters doing some more training for their pilot training for the upcoming summer months. So we get a lot of unusual, I would call it, traffic here. But the major mix is the local pilots, general pilots from all over Alberta and Manitoba and Saskatchewan, doing cross-country flights, and a lot of it's training flights from the Calgarys, Edmontons, Red Deer flying schools.
Wetaskiwin.
Wetaskiwin as well, yes. So, to answer your question, Councillor Moser, I don't think we have a comparable in this list, but it does give you the cross-section of what we do get for traffic.
Would we be able to get, like, number of flights, et cetera, like what you to report to us?
It would be difficult, but I could try and find it, yeah.
I'm just curious if that's a typical thing that people are tracking, what type of flights and how many flights.
I would have to request the
Publicly.
information, yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
There's no online database I can think of.
okay. So just, Counselor Musker, when we did our airport tour, that was one of the things that was brought up, was that it would deter visitors from coming. And we also want to grow our development along the airport, you know, and encourage, it's a good asset to, you know, like there's a doctor that wants to get his flying license, you know, so it's a good draw for maybe a unique portion of the community. I know that lots of places charge fees. Another thing was, when we originally had the conversation, it's my impression that one of the things that was brought up is how to, A, collect the money, and how to, like, is there billing? So like, are we gonna be chasing $5 from a student that one time stopped at Rocky? Like, how are we gonna collect that? Are we gonna do, like, it's not like a swim pass where you line up and you pay to go in the pool, right? They're landing, and then it's recorded sometimes on a radio system, right? Not necessarily firsthand. It's not like someone, you walk up and you pay your fee like when you're flying to the States and you're going through customs. Am I sort of like kind of paraphrasing some of the conversations we had around charging fees? I see Counselor Phillips has his hand up. Maybe he remembers conversations as well.
I mean, there's been little conversation on landing fees, but there's a definite difference between a 1,500 kilogram plane and a 45,000 kilogram plane landing on the runway. So, I mean, that has to factor in how we look at landing fees and what we do with landing fees. I'm not suggesting that we will do this. I'm not suggesting we won't do it. I'm just suggesting that we look at it and have a really good look at it, because every tanker base on this list has a landing fee. And I think it's appropriate, especially for those heavy bombers, that they're the ones that are pounding up the runway and you know, taking the life out of that runway. So to me, I think it's something we need to look at. And if there's no further discussion, I would be prepared to make a motion.
Well, I think we have some more discussion. We have some time to discuss it. I think the more we discuss it before we take it to ICC, the better it is, because if we can fine tune exactly what we would like to have, but I don't think we have all of the data that we can make a really good, you know, if we don't know how many flights and these other airports and what other contracts are. And there's two parts to the whole airport, right? Counselor Musker?
Yes, thank you,
Yeah.
Your Worship. I just wanted to say thank you for kind of explaining why we don't have a fee structure, and also to Councillor Phillips and yourself for kind of putting some flesh on it for me, so thank you.
Yeah, yeah, I certainly don't mind looking at it, but I don't think we should be looking at a fee structure. I think we should be looking at economic development and maybe renegotiating our tanker base, because we wouldn't need that airport structure without the tanker base. And it's not to say that we're gonna take advantage of them, but they're the reason we're having to do some of the heavier maintenance with the width and length of the airport, as opposed to some of the other airports in the province. So are you suggesting that we have, Councillor Phillips, are you suggesting we bring it back again and look at this in more in depth, or you want to bring it up to a council meeting?
What I'm suggesting is that we bring this to an ICC meeting and see what our partners think first, because they may have a different idea than we have. Then we can come back to councils and say, this is what our partners are thinking. And then we can go back to council and have a further discussion. And at that point, I would suggest that we have the tanker contract and see what it looks like, and see if it addresses landing fees or not, because it may address landing fees in that contract already, and it may not. But I think the first step is to talk to our partners and see what their thoughts are on landing fees before we go too far ahead in this process.
Thank you. I see Councillor Chappelle has something to add.
Yes, Your Worship, I'm agreeing with Councillor Phillips. I think the discussion should move to ICC. It'd be redundant conversation here if all of a sudden they say no to everything. Let's get a feel for where with the pulse there, and then move forward. And regardless, recommendations will come from ICC back to council. So it's not that we're not going to get another kick at the cat. So I think to move the subject along, we let ICC have a look at it and go from there.
So Betty, do we need a rise and report to take it to council to make a motion to take it to ICC?
I would suggest that you do that.
Thank you. So Councillor Phillips, would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I will happily make the motion that we rise and report the topic of airport landing fees to the next council meeting to propose to bring it to an ICC meeting.
Okay.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Just do a rise and report.
Well, instead of just saying landing fees, just saying this document, because it covers more fees, and they might want to have a broader discussion.
Yep, that's a good point. So just as opposed to landing, instead of the word landing fees, just say the
Airport rates is what the top of the
fee
document says.
the fee comparison.
So before I call that, Councillor Hutchinson?
I should have asked before the motion, but, so we're not a terminal controlled airport, I don't know what the term is for that. Like, we don't have somebody sitting in
We are
Go
an
ahead.
uncontrolled airport.
uncontrolled.
Yeah.
So, is there advantages, and what would have to happen to become a controlled airport?
That'd be
Money.
Well, I'm thinking longer term down the road, and depending on where we're at as a council, both councils, and what growth we kind of are thinking of, and what we want to see for that airport, is it something that would be a possibility in the future, or not?
So can you explain the difference between uncontrolled and controlled and how it works? Because maybe that's, like, we don't need a controlled airport. Can you explain the difference between that maybe
Sure.
first?
Okay, a controlled airport is one that's monitored by NAV Canada and one of their towers. They don't necessarily control the airplane, they advise the aircraft, they keep track of the aircraft in the pattern where everybody is, and provide separation that way. Ours is kind of a VFR airport. You fly in, you fly a certain pattern in the circuit when you arrive to see and be seen by their aircraft. Your radio communications are actually the only way of telling who is where. In the past, Rocky had, I guess it would have been a Transport Canada at the time, radio station here with 24-hour coverage, guy in there on the radio, keeping track of data, talking to airplanes, telling them where everybody is. That changed quite a long time ago. And then he had a temporary CARS station, it was a community air radio station, for a while, and then they shut down because there wasn't enough traffic to justify the cost. So gone to uncontrolled. To go back to a controlled airport would be costly. You'd have to hire staff to monitor radio, that have training in this process. I don't think NAV Canada will look at sending someone over here, but they could do it remotely through the Red Deer or Edmonton offices, just through the radio system and a radar, I guess, some sort. It's not impossible. It's just, is it worth it cost-wise? Is my question.
Councillor Hutchinson?
I'm just inquiring about that, and again, not thinking about today or tomorrow, but,
Yes.
depending on what happens in the West Country with growth, and, could this airport be a busier airport with larger planes landing and adding to the tourism and whatnot? So, something that could be thought about looking 10 years, 15 years down the road.
I kind of hope so, personally.
Thank you so much for answering everyone's questions and clarifying how that works in our community. So we have a motion on the table to rise and report for airport, did you say fees? What did you call it?
Airport fee comparison.
Airport fee comparison. And I would just like to add, I'd really like to see like numbers. So I know that you did our report because I remember reading it, seeing how many, flights are we talking about. I'd like to have that information. If there's some way that you can, we could get a hold of other municipalities to see what their tanker base, rates and things are, and also their number of flights. That might clarify, even if just number of flights for airports makes a big difference when we're talking 5,000, that's less than one for everybody in our community, let alone both communities. It's like one every 4 people in Clearwater County and Rocky Mountain House-ish, or less, right? So, I would mind having that information as well.
I mean, to me, I think the first step is to talk to our partners first before we start tasking our airport manager to come up with data that may be irrelevant. I would think we should have the conversation first to see if there's will to do it first.
That's fine with me if you want to just feel it out. I just feel that it's making decisions when you don't have all the information is hard. So it's hard to have a conversation if you don't have all the information. If you just want to feel somebody out and see what they want to say, that's fine. I just find that we either pick a direction or, anyways, it's fine. So we're at the motion for a rise and report. No further questions on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to vote. All in favor of that? And any opposed? And seeing none, that's carried. So the next item on our agenda is going to be an RFD for automatic traffic enforcement. And I see we have Mr. Schwader here.
Good afternoon, Mayor Beige, Council. I'm just in front of Council today, and just for an update in regards to the automated traffic enforcement that the province mandates or looks after. On April 11th of last year, 2023, Global Traffic came and did a presentation to Council regarding automated traffic enforcement. At that time, it was still in a freeze position. As of January of this year, we reached out to government that looks after the program, and it's still in a freeze until December 1st of this year. When we find out that it's available for communities to apply, I guess we'll ask direction from Council when December 1st rolls around of this year in regards to the ATE program.
Thank you very much for the update. When we had that conversation, I think part of it was our 3 solar speed warning type deals. I don't know what you call them, Mr. Schwader. What are they called?
Reduce speed indicators.
Okay,
Yeah.
those thingies.
Yeah.
We discussed how they can record and track data, even though they're not giving tickets. They can record and track data about. Is that still correct?
That is correct, and we're in the process of gathering the information off those 3 signs to either present to Council at a policing committee or to Council in regards to, and that might be included in a Protective Services monthly report.
So one of the other things I clearly remember talking about back at that time was we have now, say, some data on those 3 locations in Rocky. Is there a way, and I thought there was, to move those signs around to different areas so that we can, have a better feel of what else is happening? I think we have an understanding of what's happening in the 3 areas, and it's deterred that. But for example, here, we put up a stop sign when perhaps we could have just moved that sign up to the park area, right? So are we not going to be moving those signs around? Because it hasn't happened in since the last time we talked about it.
It's a bit of a process in regards to the signs, and I know Protective Services has talked to Public Works. Public Works has to be involved as well with moving the signs around, and so we're in the process of moving them around. Does it take a while? Yes, it does.
So it's less work to install a stop sign at an intersection than, say, to move the sign up another 200 yards?
And this one here, if you're referring to this one here,
Yeah.
we couldn't put a speed sign there because it's a playground zone. So it switches from 30 to 50 per daylight time.
But you could say during these hours, are they over 50, are they over 30?
Sure, I guess, yeah.
Okay. You don't think it would deter in front of a
Right.
playground zone? Because the other playground zone that you have it on is on 57th Avenue.
Correct.
57th Street.
Right.
Street?
Right.
Point of order, we're kind of going off topic of what
But
we're
also,
discussing.
No, this is about the traffic enforcement. We were gonna move the
Right.
signs around so that when they came up available, we knew where to put them.
Just in regards to 57th, that is a 30-kilometer, the whole stretch is, compared to here, which is 30 and 50.
Okay, so that makes more sense.
Yeah.
But I just thought that as part of our discussion a year ago, when we were looking at and putting in automatic traffic enforcement, we were gonna move those signs around so that we could collect data. And I'm just wondering if we're still going to be doing that, because it's been however
Yep,
long,
and we're in
and
the
we haven't
process.
moved any.
Yep. Yep. We will move them around. Yeah, it's just like I say, it's a process that different departments have to come together to make it work.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Chappelle?
I'd just like to make the motion, please. The subject is muted this time, thanks to the government not allowing it to go, so according to the report, my motion be let it resolve, the council accept this automatic traffic enforcement as information.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And that's carried. So moving forward in the agenda, we're at 7.3, an RFD for benefit comparison. Betty, are you going to be doing that one?
I will speak to this one. So during our, I believe it was the service level review, we were asked to bring back some information on benefit comparisons. So we did use an AMSC survey that they send out every year to different municipalities. I used the one that was for large towns, so I can read them off if you'd like, but it's mostly the large towns that are comparable to us, like Whitecourt, Vegreville, Sylvan, Stettler, Rocky, Pinoka, Didsbury, Edson, Hinton, so they're in this comparison. So when we looked at it, and there's 6 different benefits that, and most municipalities would use the AMSC, not all of them do, but they provide a real comprehensive benefit package through it's through, sorry.
Benefit provider.
Well, they've changed their name through the MA or whatever. And it consists of basic life, AD&D, short-term disability, long-term disability, extended health, and dental coverage. So we're a partner with a much larger group. So when we looked at the survey, for this group, the minimum coverage sits at 65% and the maximum is 100. And even the median for all premiums is pretty much 100, almost 100%, except for long-term disability, which ranged between 93 and 89. So it's a little higher than what we currently pay. If I take the cost of the long-term disability and factor it in, we're actually paying 70-30 because we pay 100% of some, but the long-term disability it's actually quite expensive. If we were to try to bring ourselves up to a comparative amount for the other municipalities and increase our benefits to so it was 90% of that particular benefit, it would cost us an extra $150,000 a year. So it's a little on the high side. Does that answer your question?
I guess I'm gonna defer to Counselor Chappelle because
Your worship, if I
that
can,
must
to
be
Ms.
who
Quinlan.
brought it forward.
It was, I just wanted to make sure we're in the ballpark.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, I think we are. Could it be better? Yes. Could it be worse? Yes.
Yeah.
But I think that, I think we just wanted to make sure we were close. I heard once that eyeglass coverage wasn't in our program, which I'm not sure if it is or isn't. And that was sort of where I was at, if eyeglass coverage should be in the program.
Okay.
So-
We self-administer eyeglasses and
Okay.
it's $300 every 2 years, so.
Okay.
But yeah, I was mostly looking just at this benefit package. You can include eyeglass coverage in there, but it's, because we're small enough, we can kind of administer it ourselves.
So to that, thank you for doing the work, the groundwork on that. Much appreciated. And I would make the motion and we accept the report as information. And thank you again, Betty, for doing that for us.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chappelle. So with the motion on the table, is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call that motion to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And any opposed? And seeing none, that's carried. Thank you very much. So moving forward in the agenda today, that was the conclusion of 7.3. So we're at 7.4, and we have Andrea from FCSS and Wes from Recreation and to speak with us. So thank you so much for coming today.
Okay.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Good afternoon. We're before you today to discuss the item of post-house rent. So Wes, Mr. Mint, and I will be here today to speak.
We're gonna tag team this.
So currently, there have been no increases in rent over at the post-house building in over a decade on some of the longer-term tenants. There's 7 apartments over there, from studio size up to 2-bedroom. In order to be fiscally responsible, it makes sense to look into the rent and to compare that to the averages. And here's where I will toss it to Wes to speak further about definitions of different types of housing.
Yeah, so one of the things we didn't get included in your report was the information from the province as to what is affordable housing and how do you determine rates and those types of things. So they've got, 4 different types or definitions of affordable housing. The one is community housing, where we used to have community housing. We had, block funding that allowed us to build those homes in Creekside, which have since been disposed of. Seniors apartments, I guess we can almost classify the post house as senior apartment because the majority of our tenants there are seniors. Both of those programs, they look at your rent based on, can't be more than 30% of your household income. If it's more than that, or, again, so we've tried to look at some of the rates that we currently charge, where is it based on their income, and the spreadsheet that Mike did in finance sort of broke down what our current rents are, and based on the survey that the province did, which we include in your package, showed the average rents across the province, the highs, the lows, and where we would sit compared to other communities, but that doesn't factor in affordable housing rents. It's basically just, here's your market value, your rents, according to that survey. Other categories include the seniors lodge, and then the special needs housing, but neither one of those really apply to the post house. So,
So currently, the town of Rocky Mountain House is collecting $36,000 annually from post-house rent next door. With any increases that were suggested by the finance manager, it would go up to $43,440 per year. So that's just under $8,000. So option 1 would be to maintain current rental rates because it's affordable to the tenants that live next door. Most of them are either on pension or AISH, so they have a fixed income. However, it's under market value. Typically, affordable housing is 30% of an individual's income. So you can see in the chart attached that some of them are near 50% of their income on rent next door, whereas others are less. So working in FCSS, this is the lens that I approach this in, is the social wellness of individuals. So I know that any increases would have an impact, even $25 or $50 on their monthly budget. So it's important to be fair to both parties. So there would be no substantial long-term work. Any administrative changes to rent would be simple and easy for us to do here. And just so you know, when we do have a vacancy next door, which we currently have one, we work with the housing coordinator at the women's shelter to find and to advertise. So then we interview the top 3 applicants and we pick from there. So we could marginally increase the rental rates, and there was some suggestions in the attached document based on what they make and how much of that is their rental currently. My recommendation to council would be to increase rent only when there's a changeover in tenants, because it wouldn't affect the current rental rates. As you can see, variability in the affordability for folks next door, as well as making that change before someone new moves in.
Did I leave anything out?
I don't think so. I guess, as I look at it as the overall budget for the post house, we currently have our 7, subsidized housing units. We bring in, like Andrew said, just about 36,000. We have FCSS as a tenant, and we have the Pregnancy Care Center as a tenant. So currently, we're bringing in just over around 65,000 in rent from those tenants. And our budgeted expenses for the post house repair, maintenance, and utilities is just at 53,000. So we're in the black. We're bringing in 10,000 more than. So it's not costing us anything with the subsidized housing there. The province, we used to have some block funding. That has gone away, so we don't get any funding for any subsidies from the province anymore.
So that was gonna be my question, actually, is because I think that a service for our community, how we treat our most vulnerable people in our community, so those people who would be lower income, is, reflects on all of us that live here. And I don't think we should be changing the prices on that. I think it should be kept as affordable housing, which, and my understanding of that definition is the government definition, where it's talking about affordable housing is that you pay 30% of your income. And because those people are on government or pensions, I think that maybe we are not even being that. It's not even actually affordable housing because, like Andrea said, it's above some of those are, did you say 50% and higher? Is that correct?
A couple of them were near 50%, yeah.
Yeah, and so I feel that this doesn't, you're not competing with other businesses, in our community, but providing a valuable service. And I'm fine with the rates here, but my question, can we not access any provincial funding for providing affordable housing? I thought there was some grants available if we stuck to a mandate that they were looking for affordable housing. Is there nothing that we can apply for anymore?
Not that I'm aware of at this time. However, individuals can. They can apply. I do know there's 5 in our community that get the rental supplement from the Red Deer Housing Authority, which is really, really small.
Yeah, I heard that program is overtaxed, that too many people are applying, and so is there, I just, through discussions, through meetings, I thought there was more funding available to provide accessible, affordable housing, like in the sense of 30% of your income.
Yeah, the only program I was aware that, through listening to the news was there was programs out there for people who want to build or develop new and more inventory out there. So I think there's programs to help those perhaps developers that want to build potential subsidized housing units, but.
It's actually some sort of a partnership. It's like
Right.
some sort of a partnership. It has to go through a municipality. So that's why I'm asking that specifically if we've got any information on that. You can't just go out and say, I'm gonna build housing. You have to have, to apply for any granting, you have to have partnership with a municipality, is my understanding now.
To be honest, I didn't delve into that. I don't think either of us looked at those options. Andrea and I did have discussions about the subsidy that the province offers. So even somebody who's living in normal housing that can't afford it has the ability to apply. But as Andrea said, it's really almost impossible to get that subsidy. We've got 5 people in our community that she's aware of that actually get that subsidy, and there's probably more need of that throughout the province and not just our community.
I feel that's quite high, because from the one meeting that I attended, 5 was like higher than ever we've had before.
That's correct.
It's it's an overused system. Like there's a waiting list of 500 and some people, like all the time on that list.
And that information, just so you know, was from the Red Deer Housing Authority in an email within the last couple months.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you. And do you know what their waiting list is right now?
I don't,
Oh, okay, no, I was curious if they had it all in that.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think in the end, the request from council was bring back some information about our current rental rates that we have. Is it fair? In our opinion, it is. You know, like Andrew said, there are a couple of tenants who are long-term, been there 10 years plus. They've never had a rent increase, but when you look at what they're currently paying percentage-wise of their income, we're still right in the ballpark. So without every time you have a new tenant and fluctuating our rates, by having sort of a static rate for our bachelor suites or for our two bedrooms and try to be consistent that way, I think we're still sort of in the ballpark. We're not overcharging for our units, and we are meeting that need and the process that we follow to flesh out the potential new tenants that we have, so.
Thank you very much. I see Councillor Phillips has a question or comment.
Yeah, just a comment. Just looking at our current percent of income, with the 7 units, there's 1 vacant. 3 of them are already well over 30%. If we go to the proposed amount, 2 of them are pushing 50%, one's above 50%. So to me, I feel that we should be leaving our rent status quo for right now. When we do get new tenants, then we can look at something different for the new tenants coming in. But I think for the existing 6 tenants that we have in there, I believe that we should leave it as is. We don't want to have, you know, someone paying 50% of their income in a low income scenario. I think that's just too much of a burden. So I would be fine with leaving the existing ones as is. And when new tenants come in, then we can look at something different as new tenants come in.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor Hutchinson?
Thank you. I kind of disagree with Councillor Phillips on increasing if a new tenant comes in. I really feel that, I think these numbers are, I mean, we've only got 7 units. If we had 7 more or 14 more, we'd be able to fill them. You know, there's that fine line on that disposable income that they have after the end of the day. So I would be more in favor of just leaving it status quo and maybe revisit it in a year or 2 or 3. I don't know what that looks like, but you know, we've got to keep something for the people that are in need. And I wanted to say thank you for the work that you did to put into this report. Some of the numbers actually really surprised me with the number of vacancies that we actually have in Rocky in other buildings. And it did sadden me to see that Rocky was one of the higher rental markets in town. But again, thank you for putting it all together.
I'm glad you noticed that. Comparable with Jasper, actually, in one of the reports I read. So this is one of the lowest rents in town, and there's really no other affordable housing.
Yeah.
In our
Just
area.
FYI, that suite number 6, the small bachelor suite that we just filled here in February, we actually did increase the rent there by $25 from $375 to $400, so that all of our bachelor suites are the same price, even though one's, you know, if you did square footage on each of them, they're all vary a little bit.
Councillor Phillips, did you have a second question? I'm just going to
Just-
go to Councillor Schippold first,
Just a-
because you've already spoke.
Okay, yeah,
But
that's fine.
he
We
hasn't
can
had
do
an
that.
opportunity yet.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Phillips. The only concern, I agree with where Councillor Phillips is at. I think as a tenant moves out, we look at a small bump. There's far more than 7 people in Rocky Mountain that's looking for affordable housing. We're lucky we have 7. It's too bad we don't have 107. So we as a town, we subsidize those 7. Maybe we should be looking at subsidizing 107 in town and, you know, get a little bit more here and get a little bit less from the rest. I just want to make sure that we have the ability to be consistent with what we're doing in our town, and 7 is great, but I do think there's room for movement. So I would support Councillor Phillips and say, hey, we leave the rates of the ones that are there in place, and if anybody moves in or out, at that point we nudge it a bit. So I would support you in that motion, Councillor Phillips.
So back to Councillor Phillips then, see if no one else has their light on.
Just some clarification on new tenants coming in. I'm not proposing that we have to bump it up, but it should be looked at. You know, if it's a potential that it can happen, yes. But if it's gonna take someone's percent and make it 40 or 45%, then I don't agree that we should do it. But I think we should look at it whenever new tenants come in. And if there's a possibility to do it, then we do it. And if there's not a possibility, then it stays status quo.
That's part of the process of reviewing, right, is
Yeah.
looking at their incomes and
Yeah.
can do the calculations.
So, thank you again so much for, supporting our community. If you haven't already got a call, I have a tenant for you, because I got called at home on Sunday.
There's one vacancy, so taking
Yeah.
applications.
Yeah, so, I did tell her to get a hold of you.
Sure, good.
It's someone that fits your criteria, that,
Awesome.
and I feel that this is a necessary, I know that it's, it seems like we're having, Seven Suites isn't competing against any other market in our community, and it's providing something. If we didn't have this funding or this, and we're not losing money on it, I mean, it's managed quite well, right? We're making money on it, so. Counselor Phillips, did you make the motion, or you would just propose? So I'd like to make a motion at this time that we keep the rent, and thank you very much for your report, keep the rent as it is, and only maybe look at it, not necessarily change anything for future tenants, depending on the time. Could be 5 years from now, when you have an availability again, it could be tomorrow. I feel that we'll look at it when it happens, but to maybe just,
I think Betty was gonna speak. I don't think we can make a motion at this meeting. We can rise and report.
yeah, so I'll make a rise and report to bring it to council to keep it the same. Sorry, I forgot my own rule, what I said earlier, so,
We'll tweak this RFP,
yeah.
and bring it back with some of the other information we've included in here, so that,
I don't think it needs to come back. I think that we have all had our answers, and we're just ready to rise and report so we can make a motion. Does that sound fair? Did you need more information?
No, just, I mean, the recommended alternative is to make a motion to accept the current everything as information, which, is that not what you were making the motion to keep? Or did you wanna change it? That's why we'd have to rise and report.
Sorry, no, I'll accept it for information.
So then we can,
Sorry,
yeah,
my bad. Anything further? So all in favor of accepting this for information? If there's no further questions, I'll call that to a vote and amend my motion that we will accept this for information, the report. If that's all right with everyone? Okay, no further questions or comments on that? All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And then that's carried.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you so much. And Andrea, I'll follow up and make sure that person that reached out to me gets a hold of you. Absolutely. Yeah. So moving further in the agenda, that concludes 7.4, and this is 7.5 for trade shows. And I see we have Mr. Schwader and Hartling. Sorry, Jeff, your last name eluded me for a minute, and Mr. Hartling in front of us today.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, Council. Oops, gotta put this on, yes. Back during the 2023 service level review, Council was requested, or consideration of potential trade shows, and looking at what's on the agenda for 2024 and what we have been involved with, basically. So in the RFD, you'll see in the comments, the ones that we have been involved with in the past are highlighted. And I would say they've all been fairly good shows in various respects. And what I mean by that is some were very enthralled with engagement, such as the Calgary Boat and Outdoor Show, the Edmonton Boat and Outdoor Show, the franchise show in Calgary was an incredible engagement. The Red Deer Home Show and Sport and Outdoor Show wasn't as engaging as the larger centers trade fairs were, but still a good avenue to connect and PR our community for all who we are in the line of tourism and adventure and a place to live, play, and work. You'll see on the list there, there's some other shows that we have not been engaged with or exhibiting at. Mainly, I guess because we didn't notice them before, one point, or didn't feel that it'd be worth the time. Trade shows are hard to gauge with what kind of return we get on those dollars going out to the trade shows, because it's hard one to measure the data or the metrics with who we're connecting with and engagement of it. We do get little tidbits of information from time to time. Like yesterday, I got a call from a gentleman that we met at the franchise show in Edmonton. He's not coming here to open a franchise, but he's moving to Rocky Mountain House because of our connection. So once in a while, we get those connections with the people that we see out there in the community. And the biggest thing for us when we're out there is come and visit us. Come and see what we have to offer. And of course, we give them our, the visitor guide and whatever information we can to engage with them. Any questions at this point?
Councillor Chappelle?
Sorry, Your Worship, again, Mr. Harling. Are all these shows cost shared with the county, or are any of them independently paid for?
Good question. With the cost share with the county, yes. We do the outdoor adventure type shows. And Jerry Pratt, is, the active officer for the county, and I teamed up, and it's always a great adventure with teaming up and getting out to these shows. Because he's got knowledge that I don't, and vice versa, and it's just a great tag team. Yes, we do for more of the adventure and outdoor shows. For the home show, it's basically been on our own. The franchise show we've done in the past, it's been just ourselves. In the past, that some of the councillors came and joined.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Councillor Hutchinson?
Thank you. I like the idea of the Calgary Global Energy Show. I'm sure it's probably a little bit more expensive to get into, but to showcase Rocky at something like that, where you're getting oil companies, gas companies that are, I know I've attended a number of those, and just the new ideas and things that are coming, and gee, I'm not saying probably Rocky Mountain House, but definitely Clearwater County may be an area that could get some bites on different kind of developments. Or you just talk to one guy that's the right guy, and he's like, well, hey, yeah, we got land out there. Why don't we, I don't know, build something, do something? Just kind of a thought.
Was it a question? Were you waiting for an answer? Just had a point. Okay. I have a question. It says your budget is $7,000. Does that cover all the expenses for travel, hotels, and the trade fairs, or is that just for the trade fair fees?
Basically registration and some costs around that, not the hotel expense.
So travel, your wage, and if you had to stay in a hotel, say, is not in this $7,000 budget?
There's another small budget for that.
Okay. Do you know what that
Oh, I'm
money
sorry, I
is?
don't have the number with me right now.
Okay. Do you think $7,000, does that cover all of these trade fairs, even when you partner with the county?
We've been able to keep that with the budget, with, the past experience of the trade shows that we've been going to. Now, looking at expanding on that, such as Councillor Hutchison mentioned, the oil and gas show, those are bigger shows, they're more costly to get into. I did do some research on some of those as well. There's not as many municipalities exhibiting, but it doesn't mean that we can look outside the box and exhibit, because I've found myself in a brewery show before, when we're out there searching brewery development as prior to Rival Trade. I had a lot of people look at me a little funny, like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm just here promoting, looking for potential investors, and And then things came together. The investor was actually right in our backyard. We just didn't know, no one was ready to make that leap of faith. But with that, we had our feasibility study in hand, and we were planting the seed. And we could do that at these other trade shows as well.
So, like, I'm not opposed to promoting our community. I just think that we're doing an awful lot of work to attract people to our community. And as Councillor Phillips has said numerous times, we're not ready when they come. We don't have housing availability, and we don't have any shovel-ready commercial land. So I'm just wondering if we could take some of this budget and put it into development of services, and then go back to this in the future. If they're, you know, like the franchise show, I was there on the one day, and I feel we could have been just as successful of walking around and stopping at the booth saying, here's my card if you have someone wanting to come to Rocky or open a new franchise, we don't have you here. It's kind of what I did, you know, like, I know we did a great job, but to me, it wasn't as effective as if we could put money into development and, you know, until have something to move them into.
There are definitely those trade shows we can attend as well. It's called, what we call a reverse trade show, where we go in with our material and connect, get belly to belly with those exhibitors, potential investors, and just handing out our PR package.
Yeah, when, at the Edmonton one, I felt that was more the way it was going.
Yeah, there was another municipality there doing that.
There was a couple, I think, yeah. Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? I mean, we're all about the fiduciary if there's things that we can cut off the budget, let's cut it off and put it into something that's gonna really produce things. So Councillor Phillips?
Yes, thank you. So I do believe it's important that we attend these trade fairs. We need to get the fact that Rocky Mountains is here. We're ready for people to come. We may not have, shovel-ready land right now, but we're working on that. And I think what we need to do is keep the ball rolling and keep our awareness out there so that when people are ready to come here, we're at first and foremost in their mind. When I did attend the Calgary National Franchise Show, I respectfully had a different experience than you did in the Edmonton one. When Jeff and I attended that, we had numerous people. We were very, very busy and had very many inquiries, not just on franchises, but what does Rocky have to offer? What kind of opportunities are there? And the rural renewal stream, now that we have that program in town, that's where this came from, was that trade fair. Just the fact that we have that information and people looking for it, it may, there's things that happen at these trade fairs that may not be something that you're thinking of the trade fair, but it's something that's a side conversation, and that side conversation leads to something more permanent in the future. So I think they're important. Yes, there was municipalities that were walking around handing out cards, but I didn't feel that they were as impactful as what we were. I know the town of Sundre was there as well. There was a couple other municipalities, and the booths were busy. People were talking to us, and we were able to promote our community.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Auld now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff, I just want to say thank you for your enthusiasm when you're out representing our community. I think you do an amazing job. I think these trade shows are valuable, and I think we need to continue doing that. I wouldn't be opposed to the Global Energy Show as well. I would like to see possibly doing that with the county, as it would all probably fall through into the county lands, but I think you guys are doing a great job, and I appreciate it, and I think we should continue to do so.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. If I may just add to, like, for example, the franchise shows, the Edmonton show was very different from the Calgary show. Same organization putting on these expos, and it was a whole different vibe. Like, it was just amazing. Sometimes the outdoor shows as well. Sometimes the Calgary outdoor show is far more engaging than the one in Edmonton, and vice versa. It just depends on sometimes weather. What other major attraction is at these shows that brings people in? So yeah, it's interesting, and I've been at, say, the same show 2 years in a row, and 1 year was incredible engagement. Next year was half the traffic.
Thank you very much again.
Absolutely.
And so if there's no other questions or comments, I'm now looking for a motion. Deputy Mayor Caprero.
I will make a motion that council accept the RFD for the promotional trade shows engagements for information.
Thank you very much. If there's any questions or comments about that motion, seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So moving forward in the agenda, we have 7.6, an RFD for agro-tourism strategy presentation. Jeff, you're back.
Here we are. Our regional agritourism strategy was developed through our group called CATA. For those who are not familiar with who CATA is, CATA was organized in 2015 by a Central Alberta group of economic development officers, collaborating on various initiatives with doing mostly development type of projects. We're not in a marketing capacity with this alliance, but as you may have noticed in your RFD, CATA's collaboration between Rocky Mountain House, Clearwater County, Town of Sullivan, Black Falls, the Town of Innisfil, Red Deer County, City of Red Deer, Lacombe County, and Mountain View County. So over the years, we've done a few really awesome projects, such as the Destination Management Plan. That was the first big project the group had done recently, or a couple years back, sorry, is called Our Path Forward, and it's a trails strategy that's been worked on that the Alberta government has picked up on. It's helped with some of the infrastructure development in David Thompson country here in the last couple of years, so we're very happy with that. And it's a living document still. The agritourism development project came to play with more recognition what's happening out there in that industry, and how can we grow that? So we had formed agenda, hired Expedition. I just lost their full name. Sorry, Expedition Management Consultants to help us with the strategy. I'm sure you didn't get to read through the 75-page attachment that was in there.
Some of us did.
Oh, good for you. That's awesome. And
77 if you wanted to try printing.
and the whole thing with agritourism, as I'm sure you're all become more and more aware of over time, is production and processing with tourism in a way to share authentic, entertaining, educational experiences with visitors while generating income, providing diversification opportunities for farms, producers, related business owners. Agritourism can be everything from on-farm experiences like QPICs, farms and tours, petting zoos, markets, and connections to farm to table, local food, and culinary opportunities. And that's where in the last few parts that we fall into as the town, municipal government, that how do we bring those ag experience into our community? I think we just had one, lots of us there, on Friday evening when the Explore Rocky group had exhibit that event out at the Rebel Trade Brewery. That's another form of agritourism. So that's what we're trying to elaborate more on, and engaging more of that monetary experiences with what our region has to offer. I know we're not a huge ag development countryside, but our neighbors just to the east are. And they are supplying our retail outlets, some of our food and beverage outlets as well with their products, and we're trying to get them to elaborate more on that and give them that experience to our visitor economy. So without further ado, I'll just hush up here. There's a short 10-minute video to kind of narrate the 75, 77-page report. And Laura's just going to cue it up here. And I'm sure there'll be a few more questions after that.
My name is Justin Russo. I'm the Managing Director of Expedition Management Consulting, and I'm pleased to present to you today the final Central Alberta Agritourism Development Strategy. Our team was pleased to work with the Central Alberta Tourism Association on development of this plan. Expedition Management Consulting was the lead firm on the project, and we work closely with our partners at Food Tourism Strategies, who have deep experience in agritourism and culinary tourism throughout Alberta. So we're pleased to work with CATA and your stakeholders on development of this exciting new plan. The objective of the strategy was to develop a strategy that will provide guidance to the Central Alberta Tourism Alliance, so as we refer to as CATA, and industry stakeholders in growing agritourism in the region. So it'll be an opportunity for you to all sort of have a vision for the future and a way to achieve that vision over the next 10 years. The project started in 2022, so late in 2022, and went through 5 phases. We're currently in the final plan phase. It was a wide variety of research that was completed as part of the process, including industry and community engagement. We had some excellent conversations with agritourism businesses, and we also had an opportunity to meet with businesses at their place of business through the site tours. So that was an excellent opportunity to find out what is working and not working in the industry. We completed an asset inventory, market research, looked at your service delivery and opportunities for the future. Out of all of that work came an identification of the current state, the strengths and growth areas that as we saw them through that analysis. In terms of strengths, certainly the diversity in agritourism experiences rose to the top in something that struck us. When you look at the breadth of the opportunities available in the region, it's quite impressive. There's growing interest in pursuing agritourism, both from governments, but also from businesses that are out there producing the experiences. There are large regional markets with easy access, so we know that your central Alberta location is key here, with access to several million people within an hour and a half's drive. So that's certainly a strength for you. And strong agritourism operators. There's some folks that have been working in the industry for many years, and they certainly know what they're doing and can bring those new operators along and provide some mentorship potentially. There are opportunities for growth that were identified through the process. We did hear from tourism businesses that they are lacking an opportunity for collaboration. They want to be able to get together and do joint marketing, to develop experiences together and to learn from each other. But right now there really isn't a formalized mechanism to make that happen. Although there is diverse agritourism experiences, the quantity of market-ready experiences, those experiences that are easy to consume by visitors, are fairly limited in relation to the overall product offering. So that's certainly a growth area. Market awareness of the region as an agritourism destination could improve, as well as an opportunity to increase operator capacity around developing tourism experiences. The plan does describe a vision for the future, and it's a bold one. Over the next 10 years, Central Alberta will be recognized as the premier agritourism destination in Alberta by 2033, that is. So there are a host of regions throughout the province that are doing really well in the agritourism sphere, and your region is certainly one of those. But you're really looking to be a leader in this realm in the coming years. And the plan does describe opportunities to collaborate with other regions in Alberta as well in the future. The plan also identifies outcome statements. So what will be different? What will be by 2033? There will be a sustainable collaboration framework in place. There will be significantly more agritourism product. There'll be increased visitation, a clear and unique brand. There'll be a development pathway for new operators to grow their businesses. There'll be recognition of the vast amount of benefits that agritourism can bring to communities. There'll be a more sustainable agricultural sector as a whole. And Central Alberta will be known as an agritourism destination. The report, the strategy also identifies target markets, the primary target market being visitors from across Alberta who are seeking to deepen their connection to agriculture through fun, fulfilling, and sustainable experiences. So really targeting those regional markets, at least in the short to medium term, because there's certainly opportunities there. Secondary market would be visitors from across Canada and other countries who are seeking much of the same thing. So primary regional and secondary out of province. The strategy identifies 4 main goal areas around organizational development, product development, marketing, and destination development. So under each one of those goals, there's a host of action items that will help support those goals. The strategy also identifies opportunities for further development of agritourism, including further participation in open farm days. And you've seen quite a bit of success over the past number of years participating in open farm days, but there certainly is opportunity to build upon that success. Developing a Central Alberta brewery tour is also identified, as well as various farm tours, a taste of Central Alberta experience, cook like a local. The plan also identifies agritourism itinerary development as a priority, and there are some tools on how to develop those itineraries, as well as developing of niche agritourism accommodation and leveraging festivals and events. And we know that several partners have festivals and event strategies, so plugging into that would be important moving forward. Plan identifies the top 10 action items. So there's more action items than this in the plan, but these are the ones that sort of rose to the top in terms of what we're suggesting you do next. The first is to select a host organization. So that would be an organization that would shepherd the plan moving forward, as well as an agritourism development task force that would have representation from agritourism businesses on it. That's an absolutely critical piece of the puzzle here in terms of your ability to be successful in the future. And engaging with those agritourism businesses will be really important. Allocating resources to implementation, also a top 10 action item, as well as securing human resources for implementation. Hosting an agritourism development forum to kick off implementation is something we're suggesting as well. We had an excellent meeting with agritourism businesses in which we presented this material, and they were quite enthusiastic and wanted to get going on some of these things. So we think you would have some good participation at a forum moving in sort of near future. Focus efforts on experiences that are close to visitor and market ready. So get after those that might not take too much to move the needle forward. Develop agritourism specific collaborative marketing campaigns, which was again something that the businesses were really keen on getting started on. Develop an agritourism brand for the region, as well as a mentorship program that would match some of those more experienced operators with new operators. Provide tourism experience and package development training, so that speaks to some of that capacity building gap that we found. And then also develop an information resource describing regulatory requirements for establishing new agritourism businesses. So that's something the municipalities could work on there. So those were the top 10 action items that kind of rose to the top through the process. So the results of all this will be increased experiences, increased awareness of the region as an agritourism destination, increased revenue, increased visitation, and increased satisfaction, not only from visitors, but also from residents. So that was a quick sort of snapshot of the highlights of the strategy. It's been an absolute pleasure working with CATA and agritourism businesses and stakeholders in the region in establishing this strategy. And we wish you all the best in implementation, and congratulations on your on your new document and your new direction moving forward. Have a good day. Bye for now.
Thank you very much. Did you have more to add then?
I do, actually. On the action list that you saw there, those 10 points, those are things that are still being worked on. We're, as a CATA group, looking to find those champions to develop that task force to get some of those action list items into play. So that is currently being worked on, so that's kind of where things are in the moment of time. If you notice the date on the presentation as well as a few months ago, it's just things have gotten in the way, and here we are today.
Okay, thank you very
But
much.
it's-
So at this point, I think in the presentation, do we have any questions? Tina, you were anxious to talk at the beginning of the video?
Yeah, we had taken the agritourism seminar at the RMA too, and it was fascinating, some of the different places that they highlighted with the agritourism. But I was just wondering, so how does CAPE and the Chamber fit into any of this development strategy at all, or at this time, or maybe coming up, or how can they support it?
There hasn't been a lot of discussion on how the two could fit into that yet. We just haven't got into the depth of where this is going to go. We're just trying to find some of those operators out there initially to start that task force and see if they can run with it. Yes, we have Nolan on our radar. He's an incredible champion and with his brand and his place of being, an amazing ambassador to the industry, well as our community. And I know he has a lot on his plate right now. So actually, and speaking of that, if I may add, he was exhibiting at a brewery show in Red Deer this past year, and he's using our marketing videos when he's out to these shows. He's got a marketer out there that is engaging with as many of those exhibits, whether it's Calgary, Edmonton, or wherever. And so we're getting that little extra plug.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. Seeing as no one else has any questions or comments, I'm looking for a motion at this time. Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. So be it resolved that council accept the Central Alberta Tourism Alliance Agritourism Development Strategy item for information.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hutchinson. Seeing I have no questions or comments about that motion, seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. No opposed. Yes. And so at this point, I'd like to take a 10-minute recess. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So welcome back to the Town of Rocky Mountain House Governance and Priorities Committee meeting for April 9th, 2024. So we just concluded the agritourism strategy, and that's 7.6 on our agenda. And we are now at an RFD for Class A developer conversation, item number 7.7, and I see we have Mr. Schwader and Mr. Harling back again. Oh, I was going to call Jeff again. Sorry, Jeff.
Thank you, Your Worship. In November, Council gave direction to administration to reach out to the large developers that have land within our community, which we have reached out to some of those developers. And in the comment section, they are willing to discuss and evaluate possible partnerships in developing their land. They would be willing to sell the properties as well if the town is willing to purchase them. Owners commented they appreciated the tax exemption bylaw and deferring the off-site levies. Owners are willing to come and discuss these options with council.
Do you have a list of developers that you've already spoken to?
We have like the people that we have talked to, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there's any that we as counselors could approach to say, you know, like, have you been spoken to yet? Do you want more
And
information?
it was just the two largest ones that we more or less discussed it with. The
So
ones,
just
yeah, just
two?
two, yeah.
Okay. And so are there some that we could push your way?
As in developers?
Yes.
Sure, if you'd like, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So without telling us, will you tell us later who the two you are,
Sure,
that you
yeah.
talked to are, so that we know which ones to send
Right.
your way?
Sure.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Chappelle?
Your Worship, if I could, to Mr. Schrader. So you've spoken to these people. Was there any indication or is there any traction there of them themselves maybe making something happen? Is there any possible things out there? So if we as a town don't throw money at it, is anything got any traction out there in terms of an individual moving forward on anything?
This individual wasn't totally upfront, I guess, in regards to not 100%. He's willing to look at options. Yeah.
Did you get any feedback of what more we could do to encourage developers to put their money into their shovels so that we can have shovel-ready land?
With our discussions, not really. We just talked about if they would be willing to, what we could do as to, partnerships. And those partnerships are cost sharing the infrastructure is what we discussed at these meetings.
And
So-
is that something that you'd like council to look at before or after the proposals are come to your desk?
Well, they're not, we're not getting any proposals as of right now. We're just discussing. And I guess, we would need direction from council if we want to go back to these developers and ask if, if they're willing to partner in infrastructure or if we're willing to purchase, and I guess at what cost. So we're just kind of looking for direction as far as how you want us to proceed with these developers.
I see that Councillor Chappelle has put his light on. Will be on this side yet?
Your Worship, if I could, this may be something we should table till our CAO is here. And I think it could be a in-camera discussion as to if we as a town even have the availability of funds to get involved in helping a developer get going. I'm not personally totally against that, but I think we need to know if there's funds available or how we'd go about starting that process, because, we can sit here and dig and claw, but we need to make it happen. And if it's possibly contributing some finances to it, then I think we should table this subject for now, wait for the CAO to come back and have an in-camera discussion about where funds could be and how we could look at a project such as that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Phillips, I see you have a question or comment.
Yes, thank you. So it's my understanding that in our June GPC meeting that we are having this discussion of land development. I know Mr. Kraus isn't here, but I believe that's what we had discussed last month, that we could bring it to the June GPC meeting. So at that June GPC meeting, I think that's where we need to have the discussion of how can we financially partner, if we do financially partner, what does a partnership look like with some developers? What land are we focusing on? What area are we focusing on? Because we need to, this is my own personal opinion, we need to pick a path and we need to move forward on it. We've discussed this to death over the last number of years, and I think it's to the point where we need to make a decision and we need to move forward on it. And I think at the June GPC meeting, that's where I'd like to have that discussion go, is pick a path forward and let's move forward on it. And the same 3 words I'm gonna say for the rest of my life: shovel-ready land. If we don't have shovel-ready land, we're not gonna get development. We need shovel-ready developed land that's zoned, ready for people to build on, so.
So have you looked at any of the Alberta, like, so Alberta's really pushing housing? Are there any grants? Like, it's my understanding that the grants are for municipalities only. Have we looked at the granting process for putting in municipal infrastructure granting? And this might be a Mr. Kraus question, but just because I have, before you, it might be something to investigate before this June meeting, this same meeting in June, because it was my understanding that some communities have accessed that money. Trying to think of what ones I heard. I can't remember where I saw it in the last month. It's been a busy month with the RMA and the Leadership Caucus. So are you aware of any?
So as far as, so we didn't do any research because this is not relevant to the RFD, but the one that the other communities got within Alberta is
Yes.
presently on a freeze right at the moment. They're not accepting any new applications, but we have looked at it in regards to what the process is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you for that. I'm just wondering if, like, that would be another carrot in front of the developer to see if we can get some movement. And if you have that information to share with us, right?
If I may, Your Worship, if you can remember those communities, whatever, throw that back.
Well, I think they're the ones that Mr. Schwader referred to, that they were filled, but I'm just wondering, they only intake so many. I see Mr. Councillor Musker has his light on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Considering this meeting in June is coming up, with this will be on the agenda, is there anything that we can task these gentlemen with so that they have more for us at that meeting?
Well, I think that there's more landowners than 2 in the town of Rocky Mountain House. I can think of 5. I don't know if they're the same 5 that you have. I'm just wondering if you could look at the map of the town of Rocky, and any land that's not developed, reach out to those people before June. Subtract the 2 that you've already talked to, but I can think of 5 landowners, let alone like every vacant piece of land that we could develop, we should be looking at and seeing, even if we just find out what they need to get started.
And I'm not sure if there's a miscommunication. I thought it was just for Class A larger developers, and that's why we only went after the larger developers in regards to the conversation.
So Class A would be how many square feet?
We just went by the large properties that were along the highway and deep into the industrial area.
Okay, so that, you just looked at Class A commercial land then?
Highway and industrial.
Okay. And then what about any residential?
We weren't tasked to do that, but we can,
Okay.
if you like to, for administration to look at that.
Does anybody else have a feeling towards looking at residential development? Councillor Chappelle, did you have a comment?
I think Mr. Schrader cleared it up, but we sent him on a mission to look at highway commercial land, and that's what they looked at, and industrial. I think at this point, we should just
Focus on that.
focus on that. I'm not sure what else you focus on after that. Residential, we can focus on. It may be something we should look at, but at this point, they brought back the information we've requested.
So the road that goes through, past Pudgy's towards Cal Lake, is it 752? Is that been looked at all for commercial development at all? Cause none of it's classed yet, right? So there's, must be
You-
two major lands that could possibly have commercial development along that road, right?
Your worship, on that piece of property, if we're targeting the same one just south of Creekside, that quarter section?
Well,
Is that the one you're
there's
referring
more
to?
than one quarter section there that's
Yeah,
in town limits, that's,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it needs to be in the JDA.
yeah. It has been on the market different times.
Nope, not that one,
Oh,
across the
okay.
street on the west side.
Okay, no, we
A-
have,
And we've approached that individual, and then that individual's not interested
Okay,
in the market and
Okay.
putting it on, so.
I'm happy to move forward. Counselor Phillips?
Yeah, just to reiterate what Councillor Schipel had said, you know, commercial industrial is what we tasked our team to do, and that's the focus right now. I mean, we can look at residential as well, but I think our task right now is commercial industrial, because that's something we're sorely lacking, and that's where the development will come from.
I'm just, that sounds perfect. Does anybody have any other questions or comments for the June meeting to prepare for? See none, does anybody want to make motion at this time? Counselor Phillips?
Yes, just for the June meeting, I'm hoping we have a very good, long, robust conversation about it, because it's time. And I will be happy to make a motion that council accept this request for decision for information.
So, you had two statements in there. You made the motion now to request a decision for, request a decision for information or
No,
request?
that we accept this request for decision for information.
Accept this report for information. Thank you. All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? Seeing none, that's carried, and thank you very much for your assistance with that. So, moving forward in the agenda, we're at 7.8, draft AB Muni's resolution. This is the one that Counselor Phillips and I both talked about. I think you brought it forward, Counselor Phillips.
Yes, I did bring this forward. I think most are aware of the intention of this right now is whenever there's a code of conduct, right now, there's no body. There's no provincial body, there's no AB Muni's body. There's nowhere to send these code of conduct complaints to, which means council has to basically take care of it themselves, which creates conflict amongst council, because that's the inherent problem with dealing with it ourselves. So this resolution is more to advocate AB Muni's, advocate the province to put some type of a board, whether it's, I'm not sure what that board would look like, but somewhere that when there's a code of conduct complaint, it can automatically go to this individual group or individual business, and they will look at those code of conduct, so that it's not council policing ourselves, it's not administration trying to give us recommendations for moving forward when it's administration that council is their boss in essence. So it just to take some of the conflict and some of the the animosity out of code of conduct complaints. So that's what this is meant to do, is to advocate AB Muni's, to advocate on behalf of all the municipalities to set some type of a board or a ombudsman or something up, so that there's a place to send code of conducts to.
Thank you, and I'm disappointed that Tracy's not here, because she was gonna reach out to Sylvan Lake already. And I see that our seconder is not on here, and I'm just wondering where that went to. Tiffany, would you know?
My best guess would be just looking for council's approval on this draft before attaching a seconder to it.
So, the reason I asked
Whether
that-
she's reached
No,
out to Sylvan Lake yet or not, I do not know.
So Sylvan Lake was doing the same process on the same thing, and they had dates and deadlines. And so I'm just wondering if this is a replica of theirs, if we have to rewrite things in order to partner with them. You know, because we have to find, yeah, so I'm fine with everything that's presented here today. I just had some questions about what Sylvan Lake's work that they had already worked on when we were at the Alberta Municipalities Caucus, when we went up there.
So, you know, for the resolutions now, they've changed the mover and seconder criteria. So a mover can be of a municipality of 5,000 or under, I believe.
I don't have my
And
note
then,
with me.
and then your seconder can't be in the same classification as you. It has to be a different,
Right.
A different population base. I believe there's
So
10,000 and over.
they are, yeah.
Yes, yes.
So Sylvan Lake would fall into the correct category. That's
They
why
would, yes.
we, the mayor, Megan Hansen, and I spoke at Alberta Municipal Leadership Caucus about it. And so Tracy was gonna reach out and see where they were. But I'm fine with this as written, and then we can just move forward with partnering up with a seconder for the thing, or vice versa. Like I think we would be fine partnering with another municipality if it reflects the
And-
same intentions.
And should there be similar resolutions by different municipalities, AB Munis would reach out and have
Amalgamate.
one do it as opposed to 2 or 3. So if there is, you know, replication, that will be taken care of in the process.
So the only thing I would like to add to this is, for accepting for information, is just get a follow-up about Sylvan Lake, because we're gonna need a seconder, and if that's not the one, then we have just a window of time where Councillor Phillips and I, or anybody else on the team, could go and try and find a seconder for this resolution. Does that sound reasonable, Councillor Phillips?
Yes, I think in order to have this in to AB Munis in time for the fall convention, the time is of the essence to get a seconder for this motion.
Just to comment on all this, so we will follow up right away with Sylvan Lake. And I would suggest that we do a rise and report, and then that way we can bring this back to the council meeting next week and hopefully have some feedback already on the Sylvan Lake. And Tracy will be back this week, so
Yes,
she will.
yes, I saw
But
her email, but.
We'll follow up on it, okay?
I just don't have the information, yeah. So Councillor Phillips, I don't see any other questions or comments. Did you want to make a motion at this time?
For sure, I'd be happy to do that. I'd like to rise and report at our next council meeting, the AB Munis resolution for ratification to send off to have a seconder.
Thank you very much. So rise and report for the resolution to the
So-
next council meeting, and that would be on April the 16th. Any further questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, I will call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And that's carried. So thank you very much. So moving forward in the agenda, there's the late addition. So, I received this email Monday, April 8th at 1:39 p.m. I spoke to Angela Alvers. She's the Reeve of Mountain View County, because I know she's been communicating, because they look after a number of airports in that municipality, and they're the full, they don't partner with the town, they're the full managers of those. And so she forwarded this email to me on Monday, April 8th. I know that, Councillor Ald, I know that March 21st is the date on the letter that we were given, but we were in council meeting that day and just coming home from our, municipalities. And so I hope that solves your question about why I'm bringing it so late. It's a time essence thing. They would like a response by the 12th, which is Friday. And so that's why I'm bringing it to everyone's attention immediately. So this is why I'm bringing it today. if that, did you have any more questions about why I'm bringing it to the meeting, Counselor Ald? Your email was quite specific.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have this information before today because we can't make a decision on anything at this meeting.
Yes.
And it was, it's probably good information and we should get some clarification on it.
Yes. So, I got the information Monday at 1:40 in the afternoon, or 1:38, 9 p.m. So bringing it this morning was the earliest time I could bring this letter, because I didn't have it before then. So, we were invited to the original meetings. It was open to anyone to attend. I think that we should partner with Mountain View County. She's done a lot of work. She came to our open house. But if we need to postpone this and not meet the deadline of March 12th, or April 12th, I'm fine. But I just wanted everyone to be aware and have an opportunity to discuss it. Councillor Chappelle.
Your Worship, I read through it all this morning, and I read the attachments that came with it. It's pretty clear what they're looking for. It's basically a letter of support to the provincial government. I'd be inclined to, having read everything, maybe somebody can tell me what the changes or challenges are or questions they might have. But reading it really makes sense. I would support us supporting Mount View County with their request to the provincial government moving forward, understanding that it's time sensitive and we don't have a lot of time. It's only about our airport and basically getting funds from the provincial government, so it's pretty straightforward that way. So I'd be inclined to move forward on it, and I appreciate the fact that we just got it, but having read through it this morning, I don't see any difficulties with it.
So because we're all, oh, sorry, Councillor Phillips.
My only question, not that I don't agree with the information in there and don't think we should support it. My question is, I guess, of process, and this would be to Ms. Quinlan. We can't make motions in a GPC meeting. We can only do that in a
To
council.
like add an agenda or do stuff like that, and I'm just wondering if
That you do a straw vote around the table, and if everybody is supportive of this, we could send something to Mountain View saying that we weren't able to pass a motion, that we could pass it on the 16th, so we could bring this forward. But yeah, I think that would be your best bet, is that we can advise them that we're in support. And maybe they can, I don't know if they can put our name on it without the motion, or if they can have the motion come late, but that was my suggestion to the mayor.
So sometimes we do things by email and say if we could all agree to pass it on the 16th, can we do it today because of the deadline? That's all I'm asking for. Does anybody have any other questions? So is there anybody opposed to support? Councillor Hutchinson, I'll start with you first before moving on.
I'm not opposed to support, but again, it's the process, and I don't know what happened previously, and I know from their minutes, there's been a couple different meetings that has happened, and if we weren't involved then I question why we weren't involved then, and to bring this in at the final hour. I have not read everything over to the extent that I typically do, because I had other commitments this morning, and it was added at the last minute, so I'm again, it's not that I don't support it, I just don't support pushing it through, not following the proper procedures.
Thank you. So I was gonna do Betty, the acting CEO's suggestion, and just do a straw poll really quickly and see how everybody else feels about that. So if we could just do a straw poll. Yes, Councillor Musker?
This will be my first straw poll, so could you maybe explain
I
what this
just
is
want
all
to
about?
see if you're in favor of supporting the letter and making the official vote.
Okay, so it's
on the-
non-binding?
Correct. I
Okay.
just want a feeling of what you feel like so I can let them know. So on the 16th, we either vote on it or not, because the deadline is the 12th, and I think it's important for our community. Any other questions? Councillor Hutchinson, you have another question? You don't
have
know how to
another
vote on a
question.
straw poll?
no, I believe our procedural bylaw has pointed out that straw polls and putting each counselor on the spot like that is not in our procedure. That was removed, and it was actually specifically saying that that type of voting is not to happen.
Counselor Musker, go ahead.
Is it critical that we have to do this now? It seems to me that this is really early in this process. There's not tons of municipalities involved. Our airport was represented by our partner, Clearwater County. So at least there was a voice there. Somebody who we're engaged with was there. So that's wonderful. I mean, we weren't specifically, but, you know, are we trying to rush through this when we're still very early in the process? And
Yep.
we could engage going forward.
That's no problem. I have no problem with waiting. It's just time important. So if, are there any reservations from anyone else? I just want a straw poll to see how we feel so that I can talk to Angela. Counselor Ald.
Yes, I would just like to follow our procedure, council procedure.
Okay.
And not step out of bounds.
Okay, that sounds great. So would anybody like to accept for information this? Counselor Caprero, did you have more to add?
I was just gonna say, I also didn't have time to read it all through this morning, so my preference was to just bring it to the next meeting if we could. But I'm happy to make a motion to just accept, or no, rise and report, I guess, that we bring it to the April 16th regular council meeting for discussion.
No problem. Any other questions or comments about that motion? To rise and report to bring this to April 16th? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And thank you very much, that's carried. So moving forward in the agenda, we have correspondence for information. Does anybody have anything from 9.1 to 9.5 that they would like to discuss? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept items 9.1 through 9.5 as information.
Thank you very much. Seeing that there's no further questions or comments on that motion, all in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And that's carried. So moving forward in the agenda, we're at 10.1, Mayor's Activities and Committee Report for April 9th, 2024. Does anybody have any questions or comments about my report? So I'm looking for a motion to accept for information. Counselor Hutchinson.
I'll make that motion to accept the mayor's report as presented.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And that's carried. Counselor Hutchinson, your light is on again. Did you have a further comment? No, sorry. Nope, no problem. Thank you. So moving forward in the agenda, we're at 10.2. Counselor Ald. Is there anything you'd like to bring up about your report?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Counselor Ald about his report? Counselor Caprero, do you have any questions or comments about your report?
Nothing specific to point out, but if anyone has any questions.
Seeing that no one has any questions, I'll move forward. Counselor Hutchinson, is there anything you would like to bring up?
Nothing at this time, unless, again, anybody has any questions, then I'd be happy to answer 'em, or talk later about any of the EOEP course or any of the conference.
Thank you. I see no questions or comments. We'll move forward. Counselor Musker, did you have any questions or comments about your reporting?
No.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions or comments, moving to Counselor Phillips.
I have no comments on my report.
Okay. Counselor Chappelle, do you have any questions or comments about your report?
I have none on my report, Your Worship.
Okay. And seeing that there's no other questions or comments around the table, I will make a motion to accept all of the councillor reports for 10.2 for information. And I see, did you have your light is on?
It is, Your Worship.
Yes,
I have a question about reports.
yes.
So there's a variety of reporting happening in our reports. And the question I have is, it takes me time to do a report. And so the question is how important is it and how do we need it and can it be downsized? Because there is a variety here and has been a variety. So the question is, do we need to have council reports in this format or not? And if we do, what's the typical formatting? And how is this covered as to whether we need to report or not need to report? Is it in a policy that we have, or where is it at? I just want a clarification on that specific item.
So,
I find it interesting to read through and see what everybody's done, but if there's no information there, then I go like, why not? So that's where I'm at.
so it's my understanding that everybody's using the same format, and it's to tell the public, but I wouldn't mind postponing that discussion until Mr. Kraus was here and our ledge assistant, to say why we have it and what's going on so that we can have a more robust discussion. Does that sound fair?
That sounds more than fair, Your Worship.
Okay. So because we're in the middle of a motion, I can't make another motion, so we can do that motion after. So the motion on hand is, I've made a motion to accept for information all the councilors' reports. Does anybody have any questions about that motion? Okay, so seeing that there's no questions or comments on that motion, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And that's carried. And so now, if you'd like to do a rise and report that we discuss council committee reports at the next, Councillor Hutchinson?
I was under the impression that when we switched to the GPC meetings, that the idea of the reports and having the listings of all of our committees on the top of our reports were to be communicating to each other what happened in our respective committees. I feel that by the time we get to this point in the day, nobody's wanting to share a whole lot. So it's almost like we rush through our reports, so maybe something to add with having a discussion with the CEO here would be on where these reports fit into our agenda, so that maybe towards the beginning we have a better time to have conversation, to be able, and to have a little bit more excitement in our voices.
Sorry, and some reports, that person might not have attended any meetings or committees and might not have a lot on their report, and other people might have gone to a lot of things, and the cutoff was like 2 weeks ago as well, so maybe the timing of the reports needs to be different, I'm not sure. But did you want to make a motion to postpone or to have a discussion at a future, it should be at a council meeting with, I don't know, is it should be at a future meeting, but we need the ledge assistant, because she's gonna say why our agenda is in that specific order, because that is part of our bylaw, is it not? I'm getting a yes. Yeah. So that question I already know, why it's at the end of it's here in the agenda, because that's what our bylaw says, so we'd have to do a bylaw change. But we need our ledge and our,
If you brought it forward to a future GPC meeting, you could have a conversation about what's in it and where you want it, because you can change the bylaw.
Motion or rise and report?
a motion to have it at the next GPC, because we can make motions to other GPCs, right? I don't have Tracy here. Yep.
I'll make the motion at our next GPC meeting that we have a discussion about individual councillor reports.
Thank you very much. Just a discussion point on that, you know, some of the county stuff, I don't know if we should be doing it this way in reports for committees when things are timely, happening in real time, and then we put it in a report and then it's like a month later. Sometimes they bring things up sooner than that, and so that might be something to think about before the next GPC meeting. Just all of us, as like, there's time important issues that get put in a report that maybe should be. So with that being said, just a comment on the motion. All in favor of the motion, if there's no further questions or comments, all in favor of the motion to bring this to the next GPC meeting? And any opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So administrative reports, number 11, department reports. Does anybody have any questions or comments on any of the administrative department reports for April 9th, 2024?
Yes, thank you. I just have one question. This is in regards to the football lighting. Just kind of an update on what's going on with that project.
Thank you, Mr. Arment, for being here to answer that question.
We met yesterday as, with the football club and the school division, myself, and the electrical contractors involved with the project. And the plan is, now that funding is in place from both the town and county, they're moving forward with confirming contractors, and their hope is to start first week of July. We know the school groups have bookings, and trying to coordinate with our booking coordinator is to, you know, avoid conflict with bookings with the construction. So the plan and the hope of the group is to move forward in first part of July, so.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Try it again. Counselor Chappelle.
My button.
It's a sassy button.
This question is about the wastewater treatment plant, the new facility we're building. So it says that it gives you a little bit of an update that half the floor is poured or whatever. Can we get a financial update in terms of what percentage has been completed financially on that project on a regular basis versus any other update? So today we've got maybe 12% of it's paid for, or 8%. That would like to give us a better indicator as to how much is done and what's still to come.
Sure, yeah, no, we can provide that. And when we do our quarterly reporting, we usually give you a list of the capital projects, so it would be on that, but we certainly can provide you with an update.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any other questions or comments about any of the administrative reports for today? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion. Counselor Phillips?
I'll make a motion to accept item 11.1, the department reports for April 9th as information.
Thank you very much. So no further questions or comments on that motion. I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And any opposed? And that's none, and that's carried. Thank you very much. So the action list for April 9th of 2024, Ms. Quinlan.
Sorry, let me just.
She's pulling up. We'll just give her a second.
Okay, I'm gonna go with what Counselor Phillips said. It looks like it's all done, no? Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Everything looks like it's been completed so far, so.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the action list? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion. Counselor Chappelle.
I'll so move acceptance of the action list as presented.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And those opposed, and that's none, and so that's carried. Do we have any notices of motion today? Seeing none, I'll adjourn the meeting. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.